Okay, what do you do when your menu gets to have too many links to fit on one line the way you want? So notice that here I've got a menu that works really good with 4 links. But now that I've got 6, it no longer looks so good because now those bottom 2 are wrapping around and I'm getting this double row. So I've got more links than my navigation can handle. One way to deal with this is to use a drop-down menu to capture some of those additional links. So that's what I'm going to do in this video. We're going to demonstrate how to do a drop-down menu. Now, 4 links work really good. So I'm going to go into my content here and I've got 6 LIs. And so I'm going to say in my last LI, in the 4th LI, I'm going to add a drop-down menu. So I'm going to do a couple of things. One, I'm going to create a div that will contain all of the drop-down. And I'm going to set it a class because I'm going to be doing some styling on this. So I'm going to give it class drop-down. And this is going to be my drop-down div. And inside there, I want 2 things. One, I want a button, which is going to be the part that's going to show up in that navigation list. And that's going to be part of what I have. And the next thing I have is I'm going to have another div that has all the content of the drop-down. So inside here, I'm going to put the content, which will be those extra A tags that I have. And I'm also going to give this a class, and I'm going to call it drop-down content. And inside here, I want to put those 3 links. And notice that I'm not going to put LIs, I'm just going to put the A tags. So I'm going to put 1 and capture the other one. And I'm going to get all 3 of these A tags inside that content. And then I'm going to actually erase those additional LIs because I don't want them. I only want 4 LIs because that's how many fits in my navigation nicely. So the first 3 are the links that we had there before. And then the last one, the 4th one, is this drop-down div that contains a button and this content. Now on the button, I want to put a name. So I'm going to put more so they can see it's more. And I want to do an arrow. So I'm going to use a Unicode, a HTML special character for Unicode for the kind of arrow that I want. There's lots of arrows, so you want to pick the one that you want. So I'm going to put that special character code there. So now what I've got what I want, the more and these A links, okay? So let's go see what that looks like on our web page. Okay, notice that the A tags look just like our menu options, right? They look just like our navigation links because they're part of it. Notice if we go to the style, we see that anything that's inside a nav that's an A, so any A inside a nav has all of this style. And that's what we have. We have A tags inside the nav element, right? There's the nav element. And there's the A tags inside. So they pick up all this style we already have. So we see that that style works, and those look kind of those look the way we want. Now the button does not. This is all the default style on the button. So I can come back here and I can say, hey, add all that same style to any button that's inside nav. So I add that selector, and then I pick up all of that style for the button as well. And there I get a button that looks the same. Notice I'm not getting any of the hover. So let's go back to the nav hover part. And here it's saying when A is hovered, but I can also say inside the nav, when the button is being hovered, do that style change. And I can refresh. All right, and there I get all that style added to the button and to the A links that are in it. All right, so this is progress. This is still not exactly what I want, but this is a really good start. I want to fuss now a little bit to get that button to be wider. Now I want to remind you that I'm using a responsive layout for the navigation. So as I so I have this default, right? This is my basic, and when I'm out here, I'm doing that mobile first design, which means the mobile first is not in a media rule, right? And so the styles that are being applied when I have it open like this, I'll find those in the app media screen when the min width is 768. So inside here is where I'm getting the A links to be display block and width 200 pixels. So this is the style that I haven't picked up yet. And so I want to go ahead and add this to that nav button inside here too. So it's going to pick up those styles as well. Now let's go ahead and refresh. And now we see that that more is staying exactly the same, the way that I want it. Now I've got all of the style that I want on the A links and on the button. And so now let's go ahead and work on how we turn this into a drop down. And so what we're going to do, just to give you an outline, is we're going to make this content hidden. And it's going to be hidden until we hover over the button. So that's what we want to do. So we're going to come back and we're working. Here we go. I'm going to go work up here in the area where we're all in the mobile first up here. One of the first things we need to do is to get the position set the way that we want it. And to do that, we are going to use those divs that we identified, this drop-down div and this drop-down content div, and we're going to set position on them. What we want so let's go ahead and add style blocks for those. So this is in the nav, in the drop-down. And I'm going to need one for the drop-down content as well. So I'm going to say inside the nav in the class drop-down content is where I want to put these. And I want the position to be absolute on this one. But what we remember about absolute is that it is positioned based on the ancestor that has a position set. And so we want to go to its nearest ancestor, which is the drop down, and we want to set the position on this one. And we're just going to set it to relative because we have to set it to something, and that's the one that will make it set and not make any changes, right? If we don't add the top, left, right, or bottom. And so now we draw the content. We're setting this content div to absolute, and we're setting its ancestor, its most close ancestor, to relative. So let's see what that does for us. And there it drops it the way we expect it. So this is really the layout that we want, right? That we want that layout when that menu to be under there when we drop it. Okay, so this is looking good so far, right? So now we want this to be not visible when we first open the page, right? We only want it to be visible when it hovers. So I'm going to go down here to the drop-down content, and I'm going to put the display none. And if I save that and go back, it's gone. So we don't see it. And now we want to change that display, but we only want to change it on hover. And it's when we actually hover over this, right? And remember that what this is that drop down, right? It's that whole drop down div. So I'm going to say, and pay attention, this is a little tricky. So I'm going to say inside the nav, I have the drop down. Oops, I have to spell it right. And I want to do it when this is being hovered over. And when that's being hovered inside that drop-down hover, there is a drop-down content. And that's what I want to change. I have to be changing it on the drop-down content class, but it's when the drop-down is being hovered over. So you need both of those in the style. And then I'm going to change the display to visible. Well, actually, I'm going to change it to block because that's what I want it to be. All right, now notice when we're not hovering, nothing changes. But now if we go over and hover, it's visible. It's been there the whole time. It's positioned absolute, so it's there all the time. But we set the display to none, and then we changed the display to block. And it's only when we hover. So whenever we hover, those other links show up. There, that's looking great. That's just what we need then for this drop-down menu to work. Now we're going to go and look at how does this look when we have the really narrow window and we're going to vertical. So it's not exactly what we want, right? When we want vertical, we want those widths to go all the way across. And so another thing that we're going to do is change those widths. Notice there are two parts that need to have width be all the way wide. There's the button isn't wide enough and the drop-down content. So we already have a style block for drop-down content. So let's go ahead and add width 100% on there. And we come back and refresh. And we see that the content now, that drop-down content is 100% wide. Now we need the button. Notice that we don't have a button by itself, so we can simply add a style block for the button. We can just say inside the nav, whenever there's a button, make its width 100%. Okay, and again, we go back and refresh. And now the button is that wide too. So we've got the width that we need. So now I've created a drop-down menu that works when the screen is narrow and we're using a vertical nav, as well as when we have the screen wider and we're using a horizontal nav. Then the drop-down menu works in both cases. Now notice I only have it on this one page. If I go to the other pages, it's still the old way. And that is because I haven't changed the code, the HTML code. So if I take the nav section where I've changed it and I change it in these other web pages and save them, notice that I have to update each one. So in each place where we have that nav, I want to change the HTML code. Now, if I go back and refresh, now on every single page, it has that drop-down menu. And so the style is applied to all of them because I have that style sheet connected to each one. And now I've made the HTML change to each of them. And so we have this style across the entire website.